Guys, today's we're going to talk about the Locard exchange principle, which is the principle that is followed when the investigation is conducted. The investigation of a crime incident or transgression is a science. Is therefore important that an investigator should apply scientific method, up-to-date techniques, and logical reasoning during the investigation process. Again, sorry. In order for the investigator to ensure that a scientific approach is adopted during an investigation, the investigator must be familiar with the principles of investigation. There is no single definition that describes or explains the principle of investigation, however, but in context, these principles include identification, individualization, the Locard exchange principle, examination, and the gathering of factual information that answer questions to or solve problems. It's therefore important to acknowledge that the principle of investigation include three main categories, namely identification, individualization, the Locard, and the Locard exchange principle. As as you see in this in the introduction, that every contact leaves a trace. That is the local exchange principle explain. Okay, then what is the local exchange principle explain? The local exchange principle was theorized by a forensic scientist, Edmond Locard. He was the director of the earliest crime laboratory in existence, situated in France. This is a French scientist. The hypothesis of local exchange principle is that some form of evidence is usually left behind when two objects or people come into contact with each other. The Locard's hypothesis has been noted and the annals as follows. Okay, wherever he steps, whatever he touches, whatever he leaves, even unconsciously, will serve a silent witness against him. Not only his fingerprint or his footprint, but his hair, the fiber from his clothes, the glass he breaks, toll, a mark he leaves, the paint he scratches, the blood or semen he deposits or collects. All these and more bear mute witness against him. This evidence that goes not forget, it is not confused by the excitement of the moment. It is absent because human witness are. It is factual evidence, physical evidence cannot be wrong. It cannot be perjury itself. It can be whole absence. All human failure to find it, they study and understand. It can be a diminished its value. This principle is fundamentally applied to a scene of incident, traditionally refers as a crime scene, where the perpetrator comes to in contact with the scene. In other words, the Locard hypothesis assumes that the perpetrator will bring something into the scene, leave something at the scene, and leave with something from the scene. Be it physically or electronic. The Locard is based on his argument on the fact that it is impossible for an individual to act without leaving a trace in their imprint. This evidence led to the prosecution of the perpetrator or exoneration of an innocent person. Okay, uh, as we have many type of evidences, um, which is the physical evidence, is also refers as association, uh, associative evidence. Uh, um, Physical evidence. The investigator usually collects and examine the physical evidence from the purposes of identification and comparison. The purpose of identification is to determine the physical or chemical identity of an object or a substance beyond any doubt. Physical evidence include an object or substance that can confirm whether an incident has been committed or that can link an incident to the victim of the perpetrator. Physical evidence include the inter alia, the fingerprint, as you see on the screen, the tool impression, organic and physiological fluids, paint, petroleum product, plastic bags, blood, cement, soil numbers, fibers, hair, and saliva, and arm uh, of fire, which is the firearms. This physical evidence, it is important as it gives the investigators clue that can lead into a solving of the crime or uncovering circumstances around its commission. When it comes to forensic pathology, the study of medicine related to disease and trauma, which is the forensic pathology. Uh, while a forensic pathologist is defined as a person who studied the changes in the body tissues, um, as a result of disease or death, um, and the impact of such as evidence on legal causes, typically homicide. The second definition is particularly relevant to forensic investigation as the pathologist performs duties that are more in line with the duties of an investigator, but within the discipline of medicine. Any death considered to be unnatural and unpathogenic due to injuries or possible poison is investigated to determine the cause, either in the form of homicide or neglect or intentions. Yes. The forensic pathologists are people who study the changes in the body tissues as a result of a disease or death, as it mentioned here on the screen. Oh, you can ask yourself that what is the functions of a forensic pathology? The functions of a forensic pathologist include, among other things, like determining the cause of death, determining the manner of death, gathering physical evidence from the scene of incident, which is the scene of crime, identifying the deceased, conducting an autopsy, writing comprehensive reports on the findings, testifying in the court into the findings. That is the functions of pathologist. As you are going to continue with the forensic pathology, then forensic pathology, a source of information, which is the human medical legal census. You can ask yourself that this is a medical legal center, which is the mortuaries must be visited to check whether wanted suspects are among deceased who have been not be identified yet. This is the processes of how forensic pathology do the research about the deceased, determining the cause of death, uh, or in forensic in forensic pathology, the samples are necessary for investigation during the post-mortem. Forensic pathologists, these are the functions of the forensic pathologist. Okay, you can ask yourself how to determine the cause of death. The cause of death, only unnatural deaths are are usually the forecast of illegal injuries because natural deaths are not associated with a criminal act or act of negligence. Unnatural death means there are some doubts to the cause of death. These doubts need to be clarified through forensic investigation. Since death can have many causes, there are many factors uh, that one should investigate in order to scientifically determine the cause of death. This is where the forensic pathologists come into a picture. They apply medical science and the field of law in order to detect actual cause of death that may be caused by a strangulation, hanging, drowning, electric or lighting, fire, freezing, poisoning, gunshots, or wounds from the sharp object, inside wound, step wound, general injuries, bite wound, self infect wound. All these that is listed on the screen can used on how to determine the cause of death. Uh, we, a forensic aspect can be distinguished in the term of training. A clinical pathologist, for example, general works in the hospital is concerned with determining the cause of death. These aspects are usually qualified medical doctors. Other aspects must be qualified prior technicians. Determining the cause of death. It is very easy to estimate the time of death. If it is the time of death is close to the time when the investigation or examination is conducted. The investigator may find the body still warm, which indicates the death has occurred very recently. And you're gonna talk about the rigor motives. You can ask yourself, as the body starts cooling down, the lips become flexible and condition called the rigor mortis. This is the cooling down of a body. Rheumatosis is caused by the chemical change in the muscles of the death. Initially, the limbs of the corpse become stiff, making it hard to move or change their position. In human, rheumatoid cells in 3 or 4 hours after death. Maximum stiffness is reaches after 12 hours. Rare opponents gradually dissipated until approximately 48 to 60 hours, 3 days after death. Warm condition and physical strenuous activity, one of the parts of the victim before that can speed up the process of rigor mortis because it accelerates the metabolism. This is the rigor mortis on the screen. Stress physical activity before death and warm condition speed up the process. Thus, rigor mortis differ from situation to the situation as a result of the exposure of the body parts to the surrounding environment, where that the body was submerged in the water or other factors such as heat, moisture. Another scientific method that is used during the investigation of unnaturally death is hypostasis. Hypostasis refers to the blood that flows through vessels and vein to the lower part of the body after death due to gravity. This can occur early as 20 up to 30 minutes up maybe up to 10 hours after the death of the coloration helps to determine whether the body was removed. Changing in eye. The cornea dehydrates and become dull after that. After that, the eyes of the disease changes within 10 minutes. After that, this can be a reliable yardstick to determine the time of recent death. And other is decomposition. When you talk about decomposition, the body's decomposition starts immediately after that. The body also decomposes immediately within 1 second after that, or less than a second, which is millisecond. Start this process also known as putrefaction. This is immediately noticeable. It is, for instance, in normal circumstances, decomposition or only becomes visible 48 to 72 hours after that. The complete process of the decomposition is when the skeleton is the only remainder of the human body. The composition process of the skeleton is no longer and a much slower process than the ordinary decomposition changes of the soft tissues of the body. Putrefaction is the natural transition of the body from organic to inorganic materials. Uh, the rate of which a transition take place, it is very important for an investigation. The forensic investigator should take carefully note the climate condition and other possible factors that might affect the estimation of the time of death and determine the cause of death. When the body is covered, the information will assist the forensic paleontologist in their examination of the body. On the next video, we're gonna talk about something called a medical legal evidence. Please subscribe, hit and share the video. Thank you.